First thing you're going to do is take your sock and turn it inside out. When you're sewing, especially if you're going to stuff something, you work on the wrong side. And then you can make a choice, like for example, if you've got the heel. When I made this, I decided I was just going to use the very bottom of the foot, and I didn't even use this part down here. But if you want to make a long creature, you could use this like a mouth, or you could use this like a tail, like this is the tail. You can decide what kind of shape you want. We're going to start by thinking about what kind of shape you want on the top of your creature. So I did a couple little horns here. I'm going to do that again. So the first thing you should do is just visualize the shape. If you have something you can draw it with, that might help you. I'm gonna do horns again, like I said, so I'm just gonna do a V shape here. Like this. I mean, these could be horns or they could be ears. But you could do like a single horn. You could just leave it round on the top if you want it to be round. You don't even have to do this step. Whatever shape you decide, either sketch it out or you can just cut it. So I got my scissors. I'm gonna cut out this shape. Okay. Next, we're gonna sew the top of this shut. So you're gonna get your needle. If you're using one of my needles, they've got a very big eye, so they're pretty easy to thread, and they're blunt at the end, so you're not gonna hurt yourself if you poke yourself with this. You should still always be careful when you're working with a needle. And if you're at home and you have a sharp needle, please be extra careful. I'm going to get some thread, so you should be able to find the loose end of the thread and pull a pretty long piece out. I'm just pulling it out from here. Then I'm going to cut it. All right, and then to thread it, I'm trying to angle this so you can see. So I'm just going to put the thread through the eye of the needle, and I'm going to use double thread to make this extra strong. So I'm going to pull this all the way till I make the bottom even. So if you can see, it's hard for me to stretch this out, but if I pull this, I doubled up the thread, and then I'm going to tie a knot in the bottom so that it doesn't pull through when I'm sewing. So I'm going to do a real simple knot. I'm just wrapping this around my finger. So now I've got a little loop, and I'm just going to tuck this end under like this and pull it through. And then I like to double knot it because it's really easy to pull the thread all the way through the sock. So I'm just going to do this again. I'm making a loop, and my little knot is at the bottom. And I'm going to put this part under. So I got a little pretzel, and then I'm going to pull it tight. All right, so now I've got a pretty big knot. I'm going to start, I'm just going to sew down here up to here. So I'm going to start up here. I'm going to go to the back of my fabric and push the needle through, and then just pull it tight. So I'm just going to keep pulling until the knot catches on the back and I can't pull it anymore. Every time you make a stitch, pull it all the way until it stops moving. All right, next I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to just put it back in through to the other side, and then I'm just going to pull until I can't pull anymore, and I've got a little stitch there. All right, then I'm just going to come back from the back of the sock. So from the other side, go through both layers. I'm just going to poke this through and pull it tight. And then I'm going to push this down and pull it through. And I'm going to keep going until I've sewed up this whole shape that I made for the horns or the ears on my creature. Just going back and forth. Take the needle to the back, push it through. You can see it's a little bit kind of raggedy where I sewed, so I want to make sure that I go down where the fabric is still, back where the fabric is not coming apart. And I'm going to pull it all through. gonna keep going back and forth. When I get to the bottom of my little V shape, then I'll go up. So again, go into the back, coming through, going through to the back again, then back to the front. I'm pulling all the way until I can't pull this anymore, but I'm not pulling too tight because this fabric's really stretchy and that might make my shape too small. It might pull it together real tight. So back and forth. Oops, got stuck to my tape. Almost to the end. I got a little tangled. Try to straighten that out. And then when I get to the very end, so this is all stitched up pretty much, then I'm going to tie a knot. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to make a loop like this. And then I am going to bring this needle back through this loop. So just the same way we tied the knot at the end of the thread, I'm just using the needle to help me. So I'm going to do it one more time to make it a double knot. So I've got a loop like this. Got this circle, and now I'm just going to take the needle and put it through the circle and pull it tight. All right, and then I'll cut off the extra. All right, so now this is all sewn up. Now I'm going to turn it right side out. So I'm just going to take my sock. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Before I do that, I'm going to cut off the extra strings here at the end of my knot. There we go. All right, now I'm going to turn my sock right side out again. So I'm just taking these, poking them through. So you see it looks neater when I sew the inside. That's part of the reason you sew it from the inside and then turn it right side out. All right, and I'm just making sure I poked it all the way through. And it looks like this is gonna hold together. So now I'm gonna stuff it. Get my stuffing, and this is where you can decide if you want your shape to be really big or really small. You can decide how much stuffing you're going to put in the different parts. But I'm just poking it in all the way to the end of the little ears. To make my head. And then I'm going to get another little bit of fluff here to make the body. Again, you can keep going to make it really wide. This is more or less the shape that I had. See, I had kind of 2 balls of fluff. I left one like for a neck. You don't have to do that. You could keep stuffing until it's straight if you want it to be more like a tube shape. But this is pretty much the shape that I had for my little owl creature. So I think maybe I'll just do a little bit more, make it a little more full. And then I'll stop. Okay. And then I'm going to sew the bottom just the same way that I did. So on mine, I'm deciding again that I'm going to just kind of cut it off here. So I'm going to sew across here and then cut off the extra. You can keep going if you want to stuff all of this. You could turn it this way and make it a tail. You can decide what you want to do with your sock. But I'm going to stop here. So I've got my thread. So once again, I find the loose end. My thread's getting a little bit tangled here. Might have to do like so. All right, so I'm getting a piece of thread, a pretty long piece of thread, and I'm cutting it off. And then once again, I'm going to thread my needle. just put the thread through the needle. Then I'm going to put the ends together like this and tie a knot. So I'm doing my loop around my finger and then putting the ends through the circle and pulling it tight. And then I just do that 2 times. I'm going to wrap it around my finger again, make sure the knot that I already did is part of the circle. Put the ends through and pull it tight. And then I'm just going to do that same simple stitch across the bottom of my creature. So I'm going to start at the back. Get a little closer to the body. I'm going to pull this tight. Oops. And then I'm going to go down all the way through to the back of it and pull it tight. And then I'm going to go up from the bottom and pull it tight. And then put it down through and pull it tight. My little extra string's getting tangled. All right, and I'm just going to go all the way across my creature. This time I might pull it a little tighter, kind of bunch it up at the bottom so it stays together. And just up and down and up and down. Okay, and then the same thing when I get to the end. I'm going to tie a knot, so I'm making a loop like this, and I'm taking my needle and I'm going through the loop and I'm pulling it tight. And I'm going to do that one more time, making a loop, put the needle through the circle and pull it tight. And then I can cut off the extra fabric at the bottom. Got to be careful not to cut my stitches. All right, and here's my body shape. And then you can take your glue and the little brush and glue on some of the details. I think for this one, I'm just going to give it one big eye. So I'm going to take my glue. Ooh, which side do I want? I think maybe I want the orange side. So I'm going to put a whole bunch of glue on the back and stick it on. You're using tacky glue, which should stick onto the fabric, but it might take a second to dry. I'm just pushing this real hard. All right, and then I'll give it an eyeball. Let's see, do I want the blue one or the black one? I'll do the black one as the eyeball. So I'm going to glue this on. All right, and then I'll just keep going with my little scraps of fabric. As you can see with my first one, I made a beak and wings and little shapes around the ears. You can decorate it however you want. So